Start a little bit early because I don't know how long it'll take. I never really know. So I don't want to leave some undone. Can everybody see that?
What?
Back?
That what?
The TV?
That screen.
And what's the little...
It says resume slideshow. Man, I hate it when that happens.
Remember, you're not
That's
here,
me all the time.
Ray.
Wait, Ryan is doing.
Ryan's doing Sunday school. I'm not here today. Hit the little X there, brother.
That's
Well, there you go. There you
See
go.
behind the tree. There it is. Is it on it?
Yep. Now. There you go.
Oh, well.
Well, you can enlarge it over there. There you go.
All right. Okay, let's all pray, everybody. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and thank you for us to gather here today in your name, and we pray just bless us in the services in the Sunday school. May it all be for your glory and honor, and just help us to understand the word as it comes forth, I pray. And I Brother Dale's lips to speak and ours to hear. Bless all the services for all the brides around the world, I pray, Lord. And help me in teaching the Sunday school just to say something to help people here. And we love you and thank you for all your blessings. And bless all those who are sick and away from us, Lord, with the pneumonia and all the other sicknesses and problems in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Brother Wade.
So it's just gonna be on this.
Okay,
So he don't need to look for that.
If I say something wrong, raise your hand. Anybody, stop me, okay? Correct me. Chastise me. All right. So what we want to talk about today is a variety of things, but this is something on my heart for a long time, and this is the culmination of a thought that I've had going for a long time. And basically, before I get past this slide, this is a mustard tree. I guess you call it a mustard tree. It comes from a mustard seed, and Jesus said, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed.
Right.
And a mustard seed, it yields a tree that rests. All these birds of the air can rest in the limbs of this mustard tree.
Yes.
And I think of Brother Dale as being, not to exalt our pastor, I'm just saying, he at one time had a mustard seed faith, and for one thing, he wouldn't mix it with anything, because that's what mustard seeds do, they don't mix with anything.
Right.
For another thing, it's a small seed to start with, and it grows into this great big tree, and all of us little eaglets can rest in the limbs of that tree and feed off of the fruit of it. And all of our lives can be a mustard tree if we plant that seed of faith and believe it and won't mix it with anything.
Right.
After many years, we can grow into this great big tree. That should be our hope and our desire. That's something I thought about, not that much to do with this lesson. It kind of has something to do with it. But what I want to talk about is God's pattern. So God has a pattern, the general pattern that he follows of bringing things up from a seed, from a very small form, and he's very secret, very mysterious about it, and he brings it up slowly. He's very slow, meticulous, and very secret, to where the world can't see what's going on. There's only a few instances I can think of where he deviates from that, where he didn't bring from a seed up, and that's like in the case of Melchizedek. He made a full, mature man, body, sprinkled those elements over that body and stepped into it, and then one for the angels and came down as a grown men. Okay, that was for a purpose, for that time, for a point. Okay, and then same thing with the squirrels. Brother Branham, God allowed him to speak squirrels into existence, full-grown squirrels, not little squirrel seeds. And then Jesus didn't bring fish eggs and wheat seeds. He multiplied. He blessed the bread and loaves, the bread and fish,
Right.
and they came as fully matured fish and loaves.
Yes.
So there's cases where God, for a purpose, to prove some point, to show something, he'll deviate from that. But in general, the pattern remains the same, that it's from a small seed and very slow growth development up. So small that that new birth taking place in us, we almost don't even detect it. Sometimes we don't feel like we're making any progress, but we're moving forward, little by little. We just have to keep going, no matter what, don't stop. So our objective in this lesson, I want you to see how God does miraculous things in absolute simplicity. And he has a pattern that he follows to carry out his work. Okay. So, Isaiah 28:10, you can read it before and after if you want. For precept must be upon precept. Precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, and there a little. Okay, very slow growth process spiritually for us. Being born again, 1 Peter 1:23, not of corruptible seed, but of incorruptible, by the word of God, which liveth and abideth forever. God comes humble, slowly, in simplicity, just a little bit at a time. And He's not flashy. He doesn't do things to show off. He doesn't do things where the world will see what's going on. He doesn't care to show off for anybody.
That's right.
And you know, Brother Dale's been talking about the body of the Son of Man was produced by those Old Testament prophets. You know, the foundation, the Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph made that foundation. And then the other prophets that built the body for Jesus coming to. Then the Son of Man, Jesus, He sowed the seeds for our body, okay, in the 4 Gospels. All that was going on throughout those thousands of years in the Old Testament. Nobody really knew, outside of, nobody knew what was going on, that there was being a body built, that the Son of Man was building Himself a body to come here in. And then, the body that Jesus sowed the seeds for our bodies, okay, and nobody knows what's going on. You know, I go to work every day. I work with a bunch of guys that are, truck drivers, and I'm not any better than them. The only thing that separates me from them is my new birth. I'd be just the same as them for the new birth.
Right.
But I sit in that truck at these farms, and they're out there clucking like hens. You'd be surprised how much a bunch of truck driving men can cluck like hens, gossip, sit out there gossiping for hours on end. And I'll sit there in the truck reading my Bible, and something's growing in me, and they have no idea. And all of you brush shoulders with the world every day, and they have no idea what's going on in you. It's very secret.
Yes.
But it's wonderful because we know what's happening. Hebrews 10:5, wherefore when He cometh into the world, He saith, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body hast thou prepared me. What the devil's been talking about. And then we know, we're all familiar with Deuteronomy 29:29, the secret things belong to the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. Very secret things that God's kept hid since the foundation of the world, since back in heaven, things that have been hidden all down through time, and He's slowly bringing it, to revelation in us. At that time, Matthew 11:25, at that time Jesus answered and said, I thank Thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because Thou hast hid these things from the eyes of the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them unto babes. Simple babes, very simple, simplistic babes, not anything great, very simple. And then one last quote here before we start into the actual lesson. Ephesians Church Age, from Church Age book. And now to these sons of God, who by Him overcome, are given the privilege of the paradise of God and the constant fellowship of Jesus Christ. There will never more be any separation from Him. Whither He goes, His bride will go. What is His, He shares with His beloved on a joint heir relationship. The secret things will be revealed, the dark things will be made plain. We shall know as we are known, and we shall be like Him. This is the heritage of the overcomer, who has overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of testimony to Jesus Christ. Here's one of the smallest verses in the Bible. 10 words. And in those 10 words is an enormous creative act that took place over most of time. We've only been here since the fall 6,000 years, right? But science says, according to the Big Bang Theory, it's 13.7 billion years ago. 6,000 years is a minute, just a few minutes in the scope of all of time. And that verse, Schofield, in the Schofield Bible says, gives scope, gives ability for all those geological ages that science says happen over all those billions of years. In other words, it's possible. The Bible does not deny what science says about those billions of years after the Big Bang. The Big Bang itself, I believe, and the fact of it taking so many years, because the 6,000 years or 6 days of creation and the 7th day He rested was after heaven and earth was created. Then He started working specifically on the earth, okay, creating us and the animals and the plants and so forth. But up until that time, could have been millions of years or billions of years. There's no one to say it wasn't. In the beginning, that denotes the beginning of time, the start of time. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And that heaven there means, in the Hebrew lexicon, all right, visible heavens, the sky, the visible universe. That's all those things. God created the heaven and the earth. That was an enormous creative act. Separate from the 6 days of creation. I already said that. Okay? So, now, I'll do something a little bit different here. I've got about 8 minutes of a tape to play for y'all, and y'all read along and watch Brother Branham talk about this.
Came forth the man. Oh, I've got a beautiful picture in mind now. If you can take a little trip with me.
Y'all hear
I
this?
believe I've talked to it before, but to get this to the place where you'll be sure to see it. Now, let's take a little trip and go back for a little while. Don't think about how hot it is. Let's get our minds right on what we're going to talk about. And think now, let's go back 100 million years before there ever was a star, moon, or anything in the world. Now, there was a time when there was nothing here. It's just all forever and eternity. And all of ever and eternity was God. He was there in the beginning. Now, let's go out here on the edge of this banister and look over and see these things happen. Now, no man has seen the Father at any time. No man can see God in the bodily form because God is not in body form. God is a spirit. See? All right, no man has seen the Father. But the only begotten of the Father hath declared him, 1 John. See? Now, but notice, now there's nothing. It's just space, there's no light. There's no dark, there's no nothing. It just seems nothing. But in there is a great supernatural being, Jehovah, God who covered all space of all places, all time. He was from everlasting, He is the beginning of creation. That's God. Can't see nothing, can't hear nothing. Not a move of an atom in the air, not nothing. No air, no nothing. But yet God was there. That was God. Now let's watch for a few minutes. And after a while, no man has seen that now. That's the Father. That's God the Father. Now notice, then after a while I begin to see a little sacred light begin to form. Like a little halo or something. You can only see it by spiritual eyes. So look now, while we're looking, the whole church now, we're standing on a great big banister watching what God's doing. We'll just write down this question here, you'll see how He brings it in. Now, no one has seen God, and now the next thing we begin to see, by eyes of supernatural looking, we see a little white light forming out there. What is that? That was called by Bible readers Logos, or the anointed, or the anointing, or I would go to say the heart of God begin to develop into something so human beings could have some type of an idea what it was. It's a little light moving. That was the Word of God. Now God gave Himself first to this Son, which was before there was even an atom in the air to make an atom. That was. See, Jesus said, glorify me, Father, with the glory that we had before the foundation of the world. See? Way back in yonder. Now, in St. John 1, he said, in the beginning was the Word. When the first word, the Word was God. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. God unfolding Himself down to a human being. Now watch how He did it. Now, back there then, when this little halo comes out, we can't see nothing yet, but just by eyes of just supernatural, we see a halo thing out. That's the Son of God, the Logos. Now, I can see Him playing around like a little child before the Father's door all eternity. See? And then in His imaginary makeup, He began to think of what things would be, and I can hear Him say, let there be light. And when He did, an atom bursted and the sun came into existence. She whirled for hundreds of millions of years, forming clinkers and burning and forming like it is today. Still burning, still breaking atoms. If the atomic bomb would ever get let loose, the atomic chain would take, this earth would be like the sun now, just bursting and blowing. And if you could stand over on another continent and look off this, it would look like another sun, where the atoms was burning this earth. If that chain would ever get let loose and it just start turning, whirling like that. millions and millions of miles, reach these big planes of billions of Fahrenheit of heat that goes off that sun. Now, watch this now. Beautiful. Now, he made the sun. Then the first thing you know, a big clinker fell off of it. Weighed just about like this earth. Man, this little God sure now. The Son of God is watching it. He lets it fall for 100 billion years, and he stops it. Then another God falls. He lets it fall for millions of years, then stops. Now we're standing watching it come into existence. Now he's got something in his mind, and what's he doing? He's writing his first Bible. The first Bible that man ever looked to was the stars, the zodiac. And it's a perfect, just to dovetail with this Bible here. It starts off, the first of the zodiac is the virgin. Is that right? The last of the zodiac is what? Leo the lion. That's the first coming of Jesus. He came to a virgin. The second, he comes as the lion of the tribe of Judah. See? Right all out, the cancer age and everything down to. Now, he put that all in the sky and placed it out. All these meters, pieces of earth, or sun hanging off here. Now, when science goes to look at those missiles that fall, that don't disprove God, that just proves it to me. See? That just makes it more real. Now notice, all these missiles hanging out there, way out hot sun and going out through the air, of course they collected, and first thing you know, it began this iceberg. Now that was this earth coming into existence. Just a big old piece of cinder flew off out there. Down beneath it now is nothing but a turning, burning volcano, completely. The eruption started with a volcano. And science claims that as this world is, the crust on top of it where we live is just about like the peeling on an apple. No, now there's 25,000 miles around, it's probably 8,000 miles, that'd be approximately 8,000 miles thick. And just think of in there as a burning volcano. And 2/3 of the earth, better than 2/3 of it, is in water. And 1/3 of it is in land. About 1/3. And this crust that we're living on is full of dangerous explosives. Gas, gasoline, oil, everything, is that right? And 2/3 of it, better than 2/3 of it, water. What is the form of water? 2 parts of hydrogen and 1 part of oxygen, explosive. There's enough electricity in every room to separate the heat from the cold, and it'll make enough electricity to burst the room. You can put enough atoms in a golf ball to blow New York off the face of the earth. And then man, sitting on a pot of hell, kicks himself in the chest and defies God's word and says, there's no such a place as hell. I got that down here a little bit. We're going to get through that. See? You're sitting on a big pot of it every day. Everybody in here, you're sitting right on it. Hell just beneath you. And now, notice, but now when this was first found, when Jesus, now watch the little halo yonder, now I can see it move out to this earth and get over the top of it. And begin to move it over here close to the sun. It's nothing but a big ball of ice. And when it begins to get melting, then great big glaciers begin to cut through up in the North Range and come down. And when it did, it cut out Kansas and Texas and all them places there and went on into the Gulf of Mexico, and the first thing you know, the whole thing was covered with water. And now we get to Genesis 1. We get to the Bible now. However, a picture of the Bible. Genesis 1. The world was without form and void, and water was up on the face of the deep. Is that right? And the Spirit of God moved up on the water. Now, he separated the water, brought up the hills and the lands and so forth, dried off vegetation and everything. He made it, and he made the moon and set its boundaries of the sea so it could not pass. He got all those things that are made planted, made all the other.
Okay. That wasn't just occupied time. I'm not as dynamic as Brother Branham, so I thought y'all be better listening to him read all that than me. I'm kind of monotone. Alright, now this is a review. Y'all know this, but we're in a solar system. And that's kind of the smallest scale of celestial bodies in a group, you know, in the universe is a solar system. It's a central, either 1 or 2 stars, you know, some are binary system, which means there's 2 stars in the middle with a bunch of planets. But in any case, most stars have planets orbiting around them. That's a solar system. You know that. Alright, the next unit up is a galaxy. And it's comprised of about 100 to 400 billion stars in one galaxy. And each of those stars having planets around them. We live in the Milky Way galaxy. They can't see it. Science can't take a picture of it because we're in the middle of it. Okay? You can't send a probe out there. It'll take hundreds of thousands of years to send a probe out to get a picture. But just to put it into scale for you, this is called a, what do you call this? The whirly, you know, Brother Bob? Spiral galaxy, I think, or whirlpool galaxy. It's the most kind of like the standard form of most galaxies, where it whirls around like that. Most everything in space is orbiting or spinning, okay? If this were our galaxy, which is the Milky Way, it's 100,000 light years across. From this side to that side is 100,000 light years. I mean, it takes light 100,000 years to go from here to here. I'm just trying to show you how small we are and how big space is that God made. Okay, we live about 27,000 light years out from the galactic center, which is here, about halfway out to the edge is where we're at, just in our little solar system. That might be like, say, our little sun there, and we're orbiting around it. Tiny little place. And just to give you all some perspective here. Now, here's where it gets, to me, more interesting. Edwin Hubble. Anybody ever heard of Edwin Hubble or the Hubble Space Telescope? Alright, y'all know when he lived without looking on the board? Alright. He was born in 1889, lived to 1953. Sort of like Brother Branham's time. And we live in the Eagle Age, right? In the spiritual, in this age, we can see further than anybody's ever seen before. We can see all down through the church ages. We can see their message for their day and the message for our day and where we're going. Right? Because of, you know, the prophet coming in our age and God revealing to us through him all these wonderful things. There's so much spiritual light. You know, the natural coincides with spiritual. So in the natural, there's also must be an ability to see further. In 1929, there was an observatory built. This observatory was built on Mount Wilson in California, Los Angeles County. It was about 30 miles north of Los Angeles. You know, one of the sin cities of the world. They went and built this up on a mountain because, as an analogy, if you were standing on a swimming pool floor with all the water above you and you look up at the sky, everything looks murky because of the water. When they're looking out in space with these observatories, the atmosphere of the Earth, all the air molecules keep them from seeing that good. It just hinders their vision. So they went up above this sin city, if you will, up on a mountain and built an observatory on Mount Wilson and peered out into space and saw further than man's ever seen into space before. And that man, you know, this just think spiritual, you know, them going above all the sin, all the smog, fog, natural, but then all above all that sin city to see further than ever. And they saw further out in space than ever. They were trying to prove one point. For years and years, man always thought that our galaxy, they knew we were in a galaxy, but they thought that was the whole universe. They said the Milky Way galaxy must be the whole universe. That's all there is. There's no other galaxies. They wanted to find an end to space. They wanted to find where it stops. Is our galaxy all there is? This man was the first one to make this discovery. In 1929, you know, during Brother Branham's time, he saw not this galaxy, but he saw one little star, you know, using very primitive equipment. He couldn't see that whole galaxy, but he could see one little star in the corner of it. And he determined the distance of it. There's a long story behind how they measured the distance, but they found out it was 2.5 million light years away, far beyond our galaxy. So this is called the Andromeda Galaxy, okay? And that's the closest galaxy, our neighbor galaxy, is 2.5 million light years away. And he found out from that we're not alone, that our galaxy is not the only galaxy. There are other galaxies. How many, they don't know, okay? But that's the big discovery he made. All right. Now, in modern day, they built the Hubble Space Telescope on the same premise that they wanted to get it above Earth's atmosphere. They put it out in space. And now they can see even further than ever. That's what this image was taken with. And many other images you'll see here in a moment. Okay. Now, must be other guys. Right. Okay. So now here's from science, from the message, from the Bible. This is the best illustration that I can give you of the Big Bang and of creation. This is God acting and creating. I hope you'll see the pattern here. So this is what was in the beginning. If you could stand there on that banister Brother Brennan was talking about and watch, this is what you would have seen. Invisible. Just totally, there seems nothing. That's what Brother Brennan said. It seems nothing. No space even. There was nothing. But God dwelling along with His attributes. And the angels were there, right? Before time began, before the creation, the angels were there with God. And because He created them to worship Him, to make Him God. But He already was God. He just needed, something to worship and to declare him to be that. Well, there he was dwelling alone with his attributes, and I think of Adam being alone, wanting a wife. And God said, it's not good that man should be alone, I'll make him a wife. See, so that showed some little part maybe that we can understand. You know, I was alone for many years, and I wanted a wife. For all those years, I longed for a wife. To expand myself, to make a family, I wanted a family, he wanted a family. And, you know, and for many other reasons, it's good for man to have a wife. Well, God wanted a bride. And that's the point of doing all these things, creating all the universe, creating us, creating everything he did, was ultimately to get a bride.
Yes.
To share himself with. So there he dwelt on his attributes. And let's see what else I can say about this. Now here's what's powerful. The very spoken word of God. God had a thought of creating a universe. The very spoken word of God, mixed with the faith of God, created a universe. He spoke it, he thought it, he spoke it, and then he believed it. And nothing could stop it from happening. Then out of that came a big bang. Now, what's interesting, what most people don't know, the best that I can find, let me say some more things about this before I go on to that next slide. Alright, science says this about, we have time. Science says this about the Big Bang. Alright, that it happened very fast, it was very intense. There was a very intense light, very intense heat. All of the energy, the matter, time itself, space, and all the four fundamental forces of nature were all contained in one little infinitesimal speck, smaller than an atom. Brother Branham said an atom bursted out yonder, okay? Whether it's the size of an atom or smaller, doesn't matter. The point is, it was all in one speck. That sounds like God's pattern, doesn't it? Starting from a seed, working his way up. Brother Branham, I think, referred to him as a contractor, laying out his building materials. He just stretched his building materials across space for just eons of time, for infinity. Just stretched everything out, laid out his building material, and started to build from the ground up. Who else lived during Brother Branham's time that was interesting? It's Einstein. He was born in 1879, lived to 1963 or 65. What did Einstein give us? E equals mc squared. Brother Dale always talks about energy cannot be created or destroyed. That's a calculation, or a formula about energy and matter. Energy can convert to matter, and matter can convert back to energy. So what was in that little speck, how can everything be contained in that speck, was because it was energy. It was pure energy. God created it. Science doesn't know what started that Big Bang. They can see pretty much all the way back to that Big Bang, but they don't know what happened before that. They don't know that God spoke it. God spoke that into being, and then he said, let there be, and then it broke off, and there came creation. And energy all of a sudden took on mass. It became matter. It spread out and started to form protons, neutrons, electrons, which became atoms, and molecules, and gases, and stars, and planets, and so forth. Okay? But it's just unfathomable what happened in that first little moment of creation. Now here's what y'all probably don't know. Is after that was sort of a dark age. Now, I don't know if there's any indication in the message if the angels were back there watching this, but wouldn't they have been? If they're back there with God, both the fallen angels, the unfallen angels, okay, well certainly I would say watching the creation happen. And I wonder if you could say maybe that they were beginning to get nervous, because here God had made this wonderful creation, just let there be, and everything came out from that, and then all of a sudden nothing. Because science says that it went to something called opaque, which means it's invisible. Nothing going on as far as you can see, just like a mixture of really no substance, just like a cloud of nothing, just dark clouds spread out over space. And for hundreds of thousands of years, there was nothing, no light or nothing, until stars began to form from that. But what was happening is his building materials were laid out, and he was forming the building blocks that make up everything, little by little. Okay? And I wonder if the fallen angels could have seen that, and they probably laughed at God and said, well, he messed up because he had this big bang and then nothing. You know, it sounds like a lot of what God does. It's happening so subtle that the world, the fallen angels and so forth, don't see it happening. It takes them off guard. I'll have time to give all the particulars about this, just a few more minutes. So, let's see. But then, now this is a computer-generated image of that Big Bang, what they think it might have looked like. This is a real image from Hubble Space Telescope. This is actually the earliest stars from after the Big Bang. These are the earliest stars that began to form. The reason we can see them today, after 14 billion years, is because energy spread out faster than light. It went faster than the speed of light, much faster. And so the light from those stars that originally formed is just now getting to Earth. Okay? That's how come they can just now see that. But in the original, after that Big Bang, is these stars, no galaxies yet, just stars. And you see a lot of gas That's where stars form from, is the gas. Okay? It was all floating around, gas and dust and so forth began to form into stars. Then these are some images taken from Hubble as well of modern day, what we can see of galaxies all across the sky. And they say that there are about altogether something like 100 billion galaxies in the whole universe, in the observable universe, what they can see with modern day technology. 100 billion, each of them with several hundred billion stars in them. And then this is taken with some kind of a like radiation. There's different forms of light that we can't see that's out there in the universe. There's a whole big spectrum of light that's not visible. All right, only a portion of it is visible with telescopes, so they have to use infrared telescopes, radio telescopes, and so forth, and they can see that these are galaxies that are connected sort of in a web. That, science didn't know that until in the last 10 or 20 years. And so, in the big scope of things, this is the web of the universe, of all the galaxies combined. And you would say, ours isn't shown on here. This is where they've taken it of an image further out in space. But just to prove a point, ours might be this one little speck, might be our galaxy. And inside that one little speck, in one corner of that speck, is our sun. And outside of that little sun is our Earth. But God's whole focus, out of all of this, His whole focus is centered on that one little speck over in the corner. That's where all of God's focus is, and has been for all time, to try to get a bride. That's pretty much my whole lesson. So now I'm going to just show you all some other slides that might interest you. This is another picture taken of a galaxy from, I don't know which one that would be, what that's called, but you can see all these billions of stars whirling around out in space. It's just fascinating to me. I've always been so fascinated with space because my God made this, and He made it for a purpose. And I believe someday we'll be able to, when we travel like a thought, and I wouldn't be surprised in eternity if we could travel out and see some of these things. I would love to. This is a black hole surrounded by matter that's being pulled into it. They say that every galaxy has a black hole in the middle of it. That's what kind of holds things together. A black hole is where a sun has gotten so big that it collapsed on itself. The gravity is too strong and it collapses. Well, then when it does, it forms like a negative whatever, antimatter or whatever, and it pulls the other stars and things in on it and converts matter back into energy. And this is pure energy shooting back out into space, which eventually turns into other stars again, turns back into matter. That's just energy and light, where they've been broken down from there. And that's two galaxies somewhere that have collided, coalesced, or whatever they call it. These are images in space of dust and gas. These are probably, most of these you would see are several 100,000 light years in size. You'd fit several of our galaxies inside of some of these clouds of dust that come out of nebula where stars are born, gases and things are floating around where stars are born. I don't know how many of y'all have ever seen any of these things, but these are, to me, immaculate. And our God is the one that created all of this. Another nebula where stars being born, gases, helium, hydrogen gas, and so forth. And it's interesting to me that in a lot of these you can see some figures, some forms. Brother Branham saw that, and many people saw that cloud, that with the pillar, that cloud that descended and had all those figures in it. And in a lot of these you can see some figures. I don't know if there's any significance to that. I'm just saying that there's a lot of figures that you can see in many of these things. Just like in our daytime sky, you can look up and see a lot of things, whether there's anything to that or not. That's a nebula where stars are born, a star being born. That is, many of them in space look like a giant eye. It's just that hydrogen, helium gases floating around. And then this is just many, many galaxies and stars out in space.
Right. How fast is the speed of light?
186,000 miles per second. I didn't ever say that. Sorry.
You need to do that.
186,000 miles per second.
The speed of light.
Is the speed of light. If you want to talk about the vastness of space,
Yeah.
so like I said, our galaxy, if you look at this being our galaxy,
Yeah.
right there. So let's say this is the Milky Way galaxy. It's 100,000 light years across. So light traveling 186,000 miles
Per second.
186,000 miles per second goes across, well, just something like this.
Yeah.
You couldn't even see it moving hardly. That's how vast space is. And you know, it took a big God to make a big space like that, to declare God. You
To
know,
put that into perspective, you could go around this earth 7.5 times in 1 second.
with light, yeah, like him, yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Wow.
So we think we're big in something, you know, but we're not. We're nothing. We're a tiny little speck, and yet God thinks so much of us. That's what makes me want to curl up and cry like a baby sometimes, because I think, you know, Jesus said heaven and earth will pass away. Heaven and earth, in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. Jesus turned around and said, heaven and earth will pass away, but my word will never pass away. And I don't believe he meant that all of this will pass away. Why do we make it just to destroy it? I think he meant that the sin will be burned off and all those things. And you know, even the earth, he's going to maintain it, but the frame of it, but he's got to burn the sin off of it, and then we'll dwell here for eternity. But you know, there's a wonderful universe out there to enjoy. You know, just look up sometime on Google, type in Hubble Space Telescope images. You'll be really amazed at what God has done, and it's right around us all the time. We just don't think about it. That's all I have. Anybody have any questions?
That was good, man. That was good.
No
He
questions?
doesn't do things without a purpose.
No.
Right.
And when we get there, we'll know about this, I think.
Mhm. Exactly. He's got a purpose for all of us. So,
Awesome.
okay, thank y'all. Y'all can go upstairs
Thank
early.
you.
Hey, next Sunday, if you have any questions on Daniel 70 weeks, we're going to answer questions next Sunday of where we're at so far. Not what we're going to, what we are.